All right, welcome everyone. This is Todd, and we're going to talk about the PTR changes and balance changes that were announced. There was 2 PTR that were announced in a row, and we got AccCreate joining us, who's a North American night elf. Can you introduce yourself a little more? Like, say, like what's your experience with Warcraft and MMR?
Yes. So I'm an amateur, so don't take my words with much weight compared to Todd and LawLiet. I'm around 2100 to 2180 Night Elf player in North America. Um, and I play this game for fun. I'm a heavy fan of LawLiet and also Moon. So it might be the case that I might be very biased in the favor of Night Elf. So keep that in mind before anything. Uh, I am one of the better elf players in North America, probably among the few that are quite decent, but I am just an amateur player at the end of the day, so my perception of balance might not be at the same level as, say, Todd or LawLiet. Just want to put that disclaimer.
Okay, and we got LawLiet. I don't think needs much of an introduction. Legendary night elf player from South Korea. So I will show the PTR on the screen. First of all, so hello LawLiet. And
hello.
let's have a look a little bit at the PTR. I don't wanna talk about all the changes because I feel like if you're watching this, you probably should know everything. So that would take a really long time to go over everything myself right now. But we're gonna go slowly through them and then see what you guys think. So let's start with AccCreate. Like, are you interested at all in talking about the orc changes, or do you want to focus on your night elf?
I'm fine with all. I think orc is where I am most confused by the balance changes. It's up to you and the amount of time you have.
Okay, yeah, I won't do a full readouts right now of everything, but we're gonna go one by one through them. So yeah, the first one is the altar heroes. The gold cost reduced was from 425 to 400 on altar heroes. Do you like that?
Is it for me?
Yeah.
For me, I don't have much comments here. I'm just a bit worried because I understand the goal of this to encourage people to buff the to mitigate the fact that tavern heroes are instant and altar heroes are not. But I also realized that some races require the tavern heroes more than others, so this could be a nerf intrinsically to certain races. And maybe, for instance, Night Elf generally needs a second hero from the tavern. Orc generally needs a second hero from the altar. So by that nature of the matchup, Elf is getting a nerf and Orc is getting a buff. But these are one of these balance changes that the average player will not understand and see it as like a same for everyone, which in the competitive scene, I'm not really sure if the balance of changes would be equal to all races in matchups. However, I don't have much comments to say here.
That was a lot for not much comment to say. What about you, LawLiet?
한국어로 얘기해도 되죠?
네.
일단 알타 이 금 떨어진 거는 굉장히 좋은 변화라고 생각을 하는데, 근데 그거보다 이제 나엘 같은 경우에는 중립 용어를 좀 많이 쓰고 다른 종족은 안 쓰기 때문에 뭐 나머지 체인지까지 보면은 약간 나이트 엘프 너프고 오크에 좀 버프까지 이어지는 게 아닌가 생각을 하는데 패치 방향성에 대해서는 굉장히 좋게 생각을 합니다.
I think the idea of the patch note is great. Just the thing I worry is it seems like some races require the tavern more, and especially Night Elf. Night Elf tends to require the tavern heroes for second, so this might be a slight nerf to Night Elf and say a buff to an Orc. That said, I am happy with the approach of this change, the ideas behind it.
Actually, first, I would love to hear from you guys before the PTR was announced, like on the current patch that we're playing on. What do you guys think of the 3 matchups that are not mirror for Night Elf? So did you think that one of them was bad, or which one was normal, and which one was maybe good for you? Yeah, so AccCreate, you can start.
So I actually think that there are some matchups that are
try to keep it short, because if you give like super long answer for everything, we're gonna be here a while.
Sure. I think overall, the biggest imbalances in the game that I noticed this patch is the undead with its ability to fast expand and how difficult it is to punish it. It seems almost risk-free and high reward. And I think that issue really surfaces for versus human and versus night elf. So I think that kind of needs fine-tuning. It also could be the reason, it could also stem from the fact that Sacrificial Skull no longer requires Blight, and ghouls were buffed quite a bit at tier 3. The rest of the matchups, I cannot say much. I could go on all day and talk about the minute differences, but I think the major ones has been this patch. Undead's rise in power through their fast expand versus human and elf.
And LawLiet?
정확한 질문이 뭐였죠?
질문이 이번 패치에 뭐 밸런스 매치업 뭐가 잘못된 게 있냐, 큰 게 아니면 뭐 그런 게.
뭐 전체적으로요, 아니면 나이트 엘프만 봤을 때요?
전체적으로 지금 PTR 말고. 그리고 말할 때 센테스장 기다려도 돼요? 제가 바로 번역할 수 있게.
그러니까 현재 매치업이요, 아니면은 PTR 말고 현재?
현재, 네.
일단 지금 매치업 같은 경우에는 뭐
And today's matchup,
나원전이 조금 힘들고 언데드가 좀 좋고.
Knight vs Undead is pretty hard, with Undead being better.
나이트 엘프 대 오크가 이제 나엘이 좀 좋고.
Knight vs Orc, Knight is a bit better.
휴먼 대 오크랑 휴먼 대 언데드가 휴먼이 조금 불리해서 이걸 좀 고치는 쪽으로 방향을 잡으면 좋은데.
Human versus Orc and Human versus Undead. Human is inferior on both, so it should be better. It should be great to buff Human a bit.
이번에 PTR로 봤을 때 휴먼 대 오크는 그다지 고쳐진 것 같지는 않습니다.
But looking at the PTR notes this patch, it seems that Human versus Orc isn't fixed at all.
Okay, yeah. So, did you talk about Night Elf Human also?
Night Elf versus Human은 어떤 생각인가?
일단 게임을 많이 해보지 않아가지고 지금 당장은 말하기가 좀 어려울 것 같은데.
So for the PTR, because I haven't played Night versus Human, I'm not really sure right now.
No, but I meant like I meant the balance.
지금 PTR 말고 지금은.
Why ask me, Humba?
Okay. Okay. Now let's keep going then through the changes and then see everything. So the orc, one of the changes was reverted, right, on the Headhunters.
Yes, the gold.
Yeah. So why is it still listed on this? Because it was updated, right?
No, so this one includes both the PTR1 and PTR2 notes, and they're saying that from the PTR1 notes, it's been reverted back to the original cost.
Okay, yeah. So initially they announced that the Headhunters were gonna cost
maybe gonna cost 160 from 140, and now it's going to revert it back to 140.
Yeah. So. But there was wasn't there a lumber also?
Yes. So the Headhunters are 10 more lumber expensive, and that has not been reverted.
It's not listed at all.
You have to scroll down a bit, and there will be another orc saying for PTR1. So if you scroll down, there will be previous posted about orc. So you can see lumber cost increase from 20 to 30.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. It's one of the most important units that people talked about. Do you feel concerned as Night Elf, and what do you think?
So for me personally, I'm not gonna say much. I don't see Headhunters as often unless I verse Farseer, and I think Headhunters is more of a pressing concern for versus human and versus undead. So I think the players who are playing those races will probably be more knowledgeable. I personally, I thought that Headhunters will get some kind of nerf. But maybe the lumber cost is enough. I don't know the orc race to know exactly how much the lumber impacts. But if the changes are negligible, then I'm kind of worrisome, because I feel like human in Night versus in orc versus human kind of needs some kind of buffs or nerfs, respectively, to balance the game.
LawLiet?
Well, I think Headhunter is really strong, and I played some human against orc on PTR, so I think need some more gold, maybe 10, 5 or 10. It's too cheap, I think. And human against orc, this meta is same as PTR and this version, so I think need some more nerf.
Did you like that when they went from 140 to 160? And what do you think about the fact that they now go back on this and put it 140 again?
이거 왜 돌렸을 때 뭐라고 해야 됐죠, 이거? 정확한 질문이거든.
네, 터더 물어본 게그 140에서 160 골드 올라갔을 때 좋아했냐고요. 하고 다시 내려갔을 때 이게 괜찮았냐, 좋았냐, 아니면
처음에 패치 봤을 때 160원은 말도 안 된다고 생각을 했는데
First
지금
time when I saw
언데드가
first time when I saw the patch, when I saw that the trolls went to 160, I thought that was a bit unreasonable.
근데 언데드가 너프도 좀 됐고 휴먼을 해보니까 이제
However,
휴먼의 오프레이크
However, since Undead got nerfed and Human got some buffs,
휴먼을 해보니까 휴 오전은 크게 달라진 게 없고
but when I played Human versus Orc on PTR, there were not much differences.
그리고 이제 언데드가 너프된 만큼 나일전과 영향이 없는 헤드헌터는 좀 더 너프해도 된다.
다시 해야 되죠? 맨 마지막.
언데드가 너프가 좀 되어 있는 지금 헤드헌터는 너프해도 된다.
From the current nerfed undead, I think it's fine to nerf headhunters.
Okay. And then we have the Blade Master Mirror Image now doing 10% of the Blade Master's base damage, which was then increased from 10 to 25%. So that's one that I expect a long answer on. Or maybe I can just show the video first, perhaps.
So I want to point out something that not many people are aware of. This might be a bug, or maybe not be. Blade Master's mirror images stacked with every item in the game. It's outside Rune Bracers and the Amulet or Spell Shield. So even the evasion items, even the HP items, even the claws, the circlets, the auras, the Kodo's aura, Bloodlust, everything stacks with the mirror image. So keep that in mind when we look at the 25% damage. And the critical strike is not from the 25% of mirror image. Critical strike is 25% from the original critical strike.
Yeah, and I think one big thing about it is that it's only 3 seconds cooldown staying on mirror image.
So mirror image has a 3-second cooldown and has no experience points when you kill them. So basically, it's a spammable summon with a scaling HP and attack depending on the game. That will get stronger indefinitely and it will feel like at some games, if you go to the late game and the Blade Master reskills to that skill, or you see a high level Blade Master, it would essentially be a 4 Blade Master army instead of 1. That used to be the case in Balance.
All right, let's have a look at the video then that you made. It's not super realistic scenario, but we have one Blade Master with...
So this is a level 8 Blade Master. These are 100 food full mana Dryads in the game, so you would expect them to be quickly dispelled. This Blade Master has 4 Peri-ups, and he's going to use only a regular mana pot.
Yeah, but this is a bit unrealistic. Like a Blade Master would never have 4 Peri-ups, but yeah, maybe he will have some damage or something.
I just wanted to showcase I just wanted to exaggerate how abusive this mirror image is and how difficult it is to even dispel this summon.
Yeah, because obviously this spell is costly mana-wise, and because the blade has so much HP, it's costing so many dispel. But yeah, when I first saw that you made a video about this, I was like, okay, well, the blade probably killed all the Dryad and it's ridiculous. But now it's just like, it's mostly hard to dispel and get out of the way. And that's one blade alone as well, which is the problem. Obviously the blade, yeah, many things could happen. It could get mana burnt or whatever. So yeah, they run out of mana pretty
Yes.
fast. Is what happens against this.
And you can, as you can see, one regular potion, one regular mana pot with 4 pay-ups at level 8 Blademaster was enough to have more mirror images than 100 food full mana dryads would need to abolish.
Yeah.
In other words, it's practically impossible to abolish this spell or dispel this spell for certain races as the game goes on.
Yeah. So, how would you suggest then doing this differently if they're trying to make a change to Blademaster and Mirror Image?
So personally for me, I don't understand why Blademaster mirror images had to deal damage, especially because it's used a lot, almost regularly in Night Elf versus Orc right now, and it's very good. However, I think the biggest one that should be worrisome is the fact that the mirror images actually do critical strikes, and that's an equation that should not be quickly or dismissed or easily dismissed. Also, Blademaster Mirror Image, unlike other spells in the game or other summoning spells in the game, stacks with items. So there is no end to scaling. So even the Tome of Attack, Tome of Strength, all these items, if you get the evasion item, they will just keep stacking with the summon. And the summon has practically no cooldown. And unlike other summons in the game, it gives no experience points. What's scarier is the fact that Mirror Image by itself is like 2 spells, right? If it helps you escape spells like Entangle, so it is a nerf to spells like Entangling Roots and all, while creating a summon at the same time. So it's like 2 spells in one. I would like to think of it more like it's like a divine shield to get away from the fight against certain spells, or to remove all the debuffs while getting another summoning unit companion, which apparently can be spammed forever. So for me, I think Moon did a video that was released, and he thought that even 5% damage on mirror images were too much. So considering this is 25%, you can see how you can see like the difference between 5% and 25% is quite big, and I'm not sure how Moon would react to this PTR.
What about you, LawLiet?
That patch is absolutely ridiculous, I think. He must made it without thinking, I think. That mirror image is really strong, and that skill needs some EXP when I get it. 그 뭐라고 해야죠? 그 소환물하고 똑같은데 더 세고 경험치도 안 줘서 말도 안 된다. 너프가 필요하다.
It's better than a summoning unit, but it comes out faster from the cooldown and it gives no experience points.
Yeah. So what would be
HP,
the ideal change then for you exactly?
Maybe rollback?
Just
rollback.
Yeah, but usually I feel like people really, or like the people that make balance changes, they don't really like rollback, because rollback is like you say, okay, I made mistake. Nobody wants to say I made mistake. So if you had to make some suggestion on how to change it without breaking the game, is there anything that you can say they could do?
Maybe 5% or give some experiment, then we'll be okay.
Okay. All right. Next one then. Trollbat Rider's Liquid Fire no longer prevents repairs, but now reduces the repair rate by 75%. This is going to help a lot of people in 4v4. But as far as one-on-one go, what do you think, LawLiet?
Yeah, this is only for 4-on-4.
In 1v1, there is never a moment where you think, it's stupid, I can't repair my building if somebody has a Bat Rider?
Yeah, Bat Rider, nobody uses it on 1-on-1, so this is just for 4-on-4.
Okay, all right, then let's move on directly. A Great Hall build time reduced from 150 to 135 seconds. What do you think? LawLiet.
This also ridiculous patch, I think. This is really good for Orc. Every matchup against UD, against Night Elf, against Human. Every matchup, Orc have make some second base, but 50 seconds is really too fast. So I think if they want to some buff for Great Hall, then maybe HP, more HP, 300 maybe, it will be better, not change of time.
You think this is really game breaking? Like when you see this change alone, does that make you very scared? That Orc starts crushing left and right just because of these 15 seconds? Because everybody know like one of the weakness of Orc is when they expo. Sometimes you can go there and cancel their expo, but now it feels much harder timing wise. And because they have expo quicker, they also can hit some of their own timing quicker, I guess. So when you look, is this a very scary change for you think? Or it will be manageable?
한국어로 할게요.
Yes.
이게 언데드가 20초가 너프가 됐고,
So Undead got a 20-second nerf. I think he refers to the gold mine, just for your information.
그리고 나이트 엘프가 트리가 2분, 골드마인이 1분이거든요.
Night of Tree of Life is 2 minutes to build and 1 minute to get the actual gold mine rooted.
그리고 이런 것들을 봤을 때 15초 해가지고 135초가 되는 거는 좀 많이 과한 패치다.
So when you take all these into account, knowing that Orc expansion is getting a 15-second buff is quite excessive.
그리고 이제 휴먼전을 봐도
So even if you look at human versus Orc,
오크가 멀티를 먹으면 휴먼이 뚫기가 굉장히 어려운데
when Orc gets an expansion, human has a really difficult time breaking.
15초나 줄여주면은 각이 더 안 나온다.
So if you buff Orc expansion by 15 seconds, that timing window will get even smaller.
그래서 만약에 이게 잘 깨지는 게 문제라면 HP를 버프하자.
So if the fact that Orc expansions get cancelled easily, I think it's better to just buff the HP instead.
Okay. Bladestorm cooldown reduced from 180 to 120 seconds. Does this mean anything to you, AccCreate?
Yeah, this is okay.
I have no thoughts on this. You won't see this in competitive 1v1 as much. I haven't seen it.
Well,
so
with the current mirror image, you will.
Yeah.
All right. And the Great Hall?
Personally speaking, if you have actually tried, I would highly recommend trying out PTR. Great Hall goes up really fast. The HP per second that it goes up is about the same as the Undead Gold Mine now. So if you have any idea of how fast the Undead Gold Mine goes up, you should have a good idea of how fast the Orc Great Hall goes up now.
I have a pretty clear idea considering the amount of games I lost to Undead Fast expansion, yeah.
It goes up very well now, I'll say that.
So human, it's kind of hard to read this because it's split in two parts. So we'll check out the first part first and mention multiple changes at once. The blacksmith lumber cost was reduced from 60 to 50. Peasant hit points was increased by 10. And control magic was moved from tier 2 to tier 3. And if we check up there, yeah, none of this was reverted, seems like. So what do you guys think about those three?
I'm just gonna go first. I think I'm kind of worried about the control magic portion. So I understand that if I don't know the game much, or just logically, I feel like control magic should be a spell that should be on tier 3, because it looks like a very strong spell against summons. However, I worry about the repercussions of the human versus Orc, in which human is currently needing some buffs, and if human cannot even control magic the wolves at tier 2, I wonder the impacts of the game balance itself after the PTR. Also, I also worry personally if for Todd, in maps like Last Refuge and probably only Last Refuge, where Night Elf can go Beastmaster versus human, I worry about the impacts of moving the control magic to tier 3 to that hero. So there's that.
LawLiet?
Yeah.
About those three changes, do you have any particular opinion?
Blacksmith, well, when I saw that patch note, this is only Remo want. I don't know why. This is only for para rifle, but I tried to use para rifle against Soin. We play some custom games, and this burp is meaningless. So I'm not sure this is good or not, but Urs 10 or 20 is burp is just burp, but I think it's meaningless.
And what about the peasants?
This is really good. Human now have some get expand more easily. Human in early game, Peasant is really weak. Keeper always kill Peasant, and Pasher and Grunt also kill Peasant, and Lich also kill Peasant. So this page is, I think, okay. This is really good.
You think 10 hit points is enough?
Of course, why? You want more?
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, I'd rather not talk too much myself these things. I would just leave you guys.
Yeah, okay.
I have a different thought process for the peasant HP, by the way, so maybe it could be taken into account. So militias have 4 armors right now. Peasants have 0 armor. I personally don't want workers of each race to just have more and more HP and become more of a worker craft. So I was curious, like, why doesn't Blizzard take the path of maybe upping the armor of peasants by 1 instead? Just a throwaway, maybe, because that will make it tankier versus ghouls and.
Yeah. I think something like that could help for sure, because they have low damage, they move very slow. Obviously, you can militia, but that's mostly your main base. Some people are even talking about magic resistance. And I have a very hard time picturing my peasants being freaking mini dryads, on the map, not taking damage to magic. So, yeah. But I do think that 10 hit points is not much to help like the economy that gets harassed the most easily, in my opinion. Siphon, mana cost increased, and mana drain reduced as well by a few numbers. And then Holy Light's cooldown reduced from 5 to 4 seconds. Let me double check. And then the cooldown for Holy Light was reverted back. So I feel like some of these is almost like people complained. They saw this and then they complained. They were like, it shouldn't be there. And then because of that, they reverted the change. So what do you guys think about this? And do you think that's perhaps people complain and that's why it was changed? Or do you think in the first place it shouldn't have been reduced, the Holy Light cooldown, LawLiet?
홀리라이트 살리는 데 쓰면은 뭐 그거보다 내 공격용으로 썼을 때 좀 너무 좋을 것 같아서.
So if you are using Holy Light as a healing ability, I have not much to say, but I'm worried about when Holy Light is used more aggressively for fights. Yeah.
그게 좀 문제가 될 것 같아서 5초 유지하는 게 맞는 것 같다.
So I think 5-second cooldown makes sense. So I think he's talking about the Holy Light versus Undead, just for reference.
Yeah.
사이펀 마나는 너무 사기여서 너프가 필요했는데.
Siphon mana is a scam, so it needs a nerf.
Need more nerf.
More
nerf, apparently.
And like the mana cost went from 10 to 20, and they increased the rates, but then I think they
They reverted it.
Only the 20 mana back to 10, but the rate stayed the same of the Siphon. It still went down from 15-30-45 to 15-25-40. That's not enough for you, LawLiet?
이건 너프도 아니죠?
He says this is not even a nerf.
Okay. So what number would you like to see then?
어떤 거요?
그러면 이게 너프가 아니면 어느 숫자를 보고 싶냐고, 사이펀 매너에 대해.
10, 20, 30.
10, 20, 30.
Okay. Then we had Polymorph reduced by 20 mana, so from 220 to 200. Mechanical Critter sight range from 350 to 500.
Could I just add something? I kind of hate these kind of buffs in some ways because, especially the Mechanical Critter and Polymorph too, I feel like they have no effect on the game, really. Or I'm not sure, maybe Polymorph would, maybe in team games. But especially for Mechanical Critters, it seems like one of those things where in which the developers or the community can say, "Hey, your race got a buff," but
Yeah.
realistically, it might have just not been added at all. That's just my personal take. So I hate these kind of buffs. I actually want them reverted because otherwise there'll be a lot of community members that can claim that, oh, human received X number of buffs, so you should just accept it.
LawLiet,
Yeah.
what do you think about the polymorph and critter?
저랑 포커 선수랑 얘기한 게 있는데
I have a talk with Focus.
블리자드는 쓸데없는 걸로 줄 많이 만드는 거 좋아하는 것 같다고요.
Blizzard likes to write unnecessary long lines unnecessarily.
Yeah. And you think that's unnecessary? Okay. Let's continue then. Siege Engine. That's a big one to talk about. Siege Engine now has heavy armor. Siege Engine can now attack units. Siege Engine base damage reduced from 44 to 22, and then the barrage damage increased from 14 to 16. So is that something that you've been able to experiment with? And yeah, what do you think?
I think someone played the PTR tournament yesterday, and Fish tried using it versus, was it Mr. Winner? What I noted about siege tanks were, okay, PTR 1 siege tanks, let's just forget that. That unit might as well never have existed in the game. The PTR 2 siege tanks, it seems that units like knights just eat through it. Siege tanks seem to melt really fast to knights. I'm not sure if bears have the same attack damage as attack type. I don't know much about the attack types of each different unit. So maybe it will be the same versus bears. What I did note is siege tanks are extremely good versus priests, but all that is meaningless if the knights are just eating through it. I think siege tank, personally, I thought siege tanks should be left the way it is, and like I really thought they should rather be 3 foods instead, because I don't see them used at all versus undead as a top scene. Instead, you could tweak the current numbers a bit to fit the 3 food. Instead, we're going with an entirely different approach for siege tanks, and I'm starting to be curious of who would actually make this unit.
Yeah, we used to see some siege tanks as, Zeppelin dropping them, or sometimes some humans, they were also pushing Undead Expo with 2 siege tanks and hitting a timing with their first knights and third hero. So it kind of felt like they almost had found their place, where they were not like a completely broken unit, but a unit that could appear sometimes and do something, which, not every unit has to be spammable in every game, like Necromancers. There is always someone that they complain about Necromancer, but in some games, Necromancers can be made and actually do something. What do you think about this, LawLiet?
휴먼이 모든 유닛을 다 쓸 수 있었는데 드디어 안 쓰는 유닛이 생겼고.
Human used to use all units in the game. Now we finally have a case in which the human cannot use all units in the game.
이렇게 갈 거면은 인구수를 줄여줘야 되지 않을까.
If we are going this path, I think we should reduce the food cost.
Okay. But would you like them to keep working on the siege tank, like in the way they've been working on it now, or would you like to go back to the old siege tank because you felt like there was somewhat of a place for it in the game?
롤백은 안 좋다고 아까 하지 않았나요?
He says that you said before that rollbacks are bad from the perspective of Blizzard. So
sometimes, I mean, some of the changes in the PTR seem so silly that I think it's okay to roll back some of them. But like I don't remember what we were talking about, maybe the critical or something, but like it feels like for some of these, they're trying very hard to like make the thing more used or something. So that's why sometimes I feel like there is almost no chance they would ever want to roll back on something, unless it's like utterly broken, but even then they might still leave it in.
둘 중 하나 고르면은 그래도 예전 탱크가 그래도 탱크 고유의 그 느낌이 있지 않나.
He says that if you had to choose between now and current, he says like the current one is like more like a tank, so I think it will be better. Yeah. Okay,
so not the PTR tank.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Mass teleport cooldown increased from 20 to 30 seconds. Mortal team HP increased from 360 to 380. And Siege Engine no longer decreases in unit level when getting the barrage upgraded. That was I'm pretty sure that was something they forgot about, where if you research barrage, it would give the old experience, so not 40 instead of 65 or something. Account create, you can start.
I think the Siege Engine update is great. It seemed like a bug. As for Mass TP and Motor Team HP, Mass TP, sure, but I don't think it will really have any much impact in 1v1 because I rarely see it. For the Motor Team HP, I mean, as a Night Elf, I personally dislike it, but maybe it's necessary for a human to have a balanced win rate across the board. So I think Motor Teams are used versus Elf and versus Undead. So it should be a slight buff to the human in that matchup.
LawLiet?
어떤 팀이 공성기 중에서 제일 좋은 공성기에 속하는데
So out of all the siege units, Motor Teams are one of the best units.
저런 거 말고 글레이브 스트레시나 버프 해줬으면 좋겠네요.
So instead of that, I wish Blizzard would buff the glaive effect from the glaive throwers instead.
And yeah, the Siege Engine, I mean, we need to say more. Okay, let's finish up with the last human change that were there. Animal War training no longer has castle requirements. So
No more death upgrade.
yeah,
Being delete.
yes. But does that mean that then you start with Animal War training, or?
Oh, you get it. You can get it at tier 2.
Oh, okay.
I'm
And
kind of actually worried about the unintended consequences of this.
yeah,
maybe Master
wait,
House might become a thing, but
let's group all the changes together so we can move faster as well. I don't want LawLiet to go to bed too late. Then Staff of Sanctuary costs reduced from 250 to 200. And Orb of Fire damage from +7 to +10. Okay, go ahead. I can create. You start.
By the way, all these changes come directly from Remo's notes. So I just want to say that Remo is not at fault or anything. But for over 2 years now, whatever he writes on his docs, a good chunk of it will just go straight to the next balance patch.
Yeah.
So I feel like Remo should be more held responsible, and he should have known that his docs would have profound impact on the balance patches. And I feel like he has been ignoring his responsibilities. Of course, it's not his fault, and he's right. But I think we should think of the practical side and the side effects for over 2 years now. I believe Happy is very happy because of Remo. By the way, Remo's an undead player. I'm not trying to imply anything there, but I wish that balance patches has taken more into account of like pros and feedback than casters in the game. I understand that Blizzard has difficulty with language problems, so it's like a go-to. And I personally wish that if Remo were to do balance patch ideas, and he should, I mean, everyone should be able to, he should probably be doing it outside the Back to Warcraft stream itself, so in his personal account. Because if you stream your ideas in the Back to Warcraft stream, it really looks like it's a community's idea. And Blizzard being quite incompetent sometimes, and it's not their fault, right? I'm a software developer, so I understand that it's really hard to get input of the community, so you have to trust one as the source. Considering that Blizzard uses Back to Warcraft as the source go-to for balance patches, I would say from going forward, maybe Remo should try to avoid posting his balance ideas directly to the Back to Warcraft stream.
Yeah, that's a topic I wanted to save for the end, but I guess you just kind of went off, so we might as well talk about it. Yeah, it seems like Blizzard's they're taking a lot of suggestions from, you know, whoever will provide like feedback that they like and like precise suggestions. So on one hand, you know, it's like who should be balancing the game? Like we don't even know who's doing it at Blizzard. Like in the past, there was a bit more transparency. You know, in StarCraft, we knew that David Kim, for example, was in charge of like the balance and stuff. I think one of the big current problems is that a lot of top players, they don't make enough balanced feedback. And most of all, even if they give feedback, it will be like, oh, this is too good or this is too bad. But they don't give the exact suggestion on how to change. So you might think, well, you know, they're top players, they're pro players, it's not their job. But the thing is, you know, everybody's kind of like complaining about balance and the things that they don't like. If you really want to help Blizzard pick out like what they should change, then I feel like people should make more suggestions, more precise suggestions. Remo is one of the ones that goes through the greatest lengths to give precise changes. So I want to give him credit for that. But I do agree that maybe, they shouldn't take a lot of his changes like this and make some sort of Remo patch where, like we can see on the screenshot here, a lot of the changes came from him. So yeah, I wonder what LawLiet thinks about this whole thing. How do you think that balance should be handled? Do you think that Remo should not have much to do with it? And then how are we going to get top pros to finally, give feedback and suggest some exact changes?
일단 질문 다 알아들었거든요. 얘기할게요. 일단 선수들은 당연한 거지만 다들 자기 종족이 있고.
So for the pros, it's obvious that each of them have their own race.
그래서 편향적으로 종족에 대해서 얘기할 수밖에 없어요.
So it's intrinsically going to be the case that each player is going to be biased towards their own race when it comes to balance talks.
그래서 선수들만의 의견을 들어서 하는 거는 말이 안 된다고 생각을 하고.
So I think going balance patches just by the players is not a good idea.
마찬가지로 특정 사람, 여기서 레모겠죠. 레모의 예.
At the same time, special people like Remo.
혼자서 약간 일기장에 써놓은 거를 그대로 갖다가 베껴가지고 만드는 건.
Just copying his journal and just applying it directly is a bit.
블리자드 같이 큰 회사에선 말도 안 된다고 생각을 합니다.
From a large company like Blizzard, I'd say that this does not make sense.
패치를 할 거면은 몇 명을 모아서.
If you're gonna do a patch, we should get a large number of people, some group of people.
몇 번의 검증을 거치고 연습 과정이 있어야.
And we should have some practice and validations from the group.
이게 완벽해져서.
And that's how the patch will be completed. Should be.
레모 패치노트에 의존하는 지금은 정말 아니라고 생각을 합니다.
I think referring to Remo patch right now is not a good idea.
But then who would be in this group of people? Like, do you mean community people that are unbiased, or do you mean like still somewhat competitive? Because like it's very vague, right? It's very difficult to figure out the exact way to go about figuring out changes. My personal idea that I've talked about before is that I think feedback should be gathered from top pros, like maybe top 3 or top 5 of each race, and then it should be maybe not anonymous, but it shouldn't be made public. It should be private, so that's they're not scared that there will be bad things happening if people see their changes. And then there should be a few people from the community that are as unbiased as possible, looking at those changes and figuring out which one should be applied. Like if you see Happy saying, "Oh, Acolyte should be magic immune when they're mining or whatever," or invulnerable, then obviously you can throw that one out the window. But I feel like that would be one of the best ways to get feedback from pro players. And then obviously you don't have to take their feedback and be like, okay, we're gonna do everything that they say, because otherwise the game will be a shit show. But personally, I thought that would be a good way to handle balance. But maybe it's just too hard logistically. But I do think that would be the best way. So, what do you think about that?
이제 토드가 말한 것처럼 몇 가지는 동의를 하고요. 몇 명이 불러가지고 하는 거.
As Todd has said, I agree with some of those things.
이제 프라이빗하게 이제 얘기를 해가지고 만드는 게 굉장히 좋을 것 같고.
And I think it would be great if like the group of people would balance the game in private.
그리고 이제 사실 이걸 고민해야 되는 거는 우리가 고민하는 게 아니고 블리자드 쪽에서 그런 밸런스 팀을 만들어서 하는 게 사실 맞지 않나.
And to be honest, this should not be a problem that we should be worrying over. This should be what Blizzard should be worrying over. It's Blizzard's job to do this, so they should have a team to balance properly.
그렇게 생각을 합니다.
And that's how I think.
What about you, AccCreate?
I think personally we have to be realistic with the resources we are given, and I don't think Warcraft 3 is the type of game that is popular enough, if it's popular, for Blizzard to warrant its own like proper balance team and do a proper survey and all. Given that, I think we should be more careful when we make ideas, and especially if there's a potential for Blizzard to misunderstand that an idea could be the entire community's idea, we should probably refrain from doing so. Also, in general, it seems like a lot of Warcraft players want to balance towards whatever they're frustrated against or what they want to see. Right? It's like, oh, this unit's not used. I want to see this. I am not personally a fan of this. I do want units to show up, but I also think that some units are probably best off not shown in 1v1. I don't think people enjoy Mountain Giants. I don't think people enjoy Necro Wagons. I don't think people enjoy like Dreadlord first. Some of these strats that we'll definitely see playing 4v4. And I think the priority should be balanced at the pro level. And I think that should be the priority. Personally, I think balance should be done at the top 3 of each race instead of like the aggregate. I think the aggregate overall should be secondary after we balance the top. Instead, if we go by the features of what looks fun or what the viewer thinks is fun, then the game might not be playable at all in 1v1 at the competitive scene, which makes it worrisome. And to get the ideas of the balance notes, personally, my personal take is getting feedback, like you said, from like the top 3 players or top 4 players of each race, and trying to make a coherent sound of it, and let them play in private and see if they're fine with the patches. Also, unlike the past, now that we play in W3 Champions, we actually have a way to see the different statistics of each race in different MMRs. So we can actually see certain trends, and there are formulas to map out potential difficulties and changes in matchups. So maybe we can use those formulas at the top level, assuming that all the players of each race are at similar equal levels, and try to adjust accordingly.
I don't know if you saw the tweets that I just showed, but XLord seems to not be a fan of Remo patching the game at all or making suggestions, and he even said to Remo that he should reach 2000 MMR before doing such stuff. But you know, I don't think Remo is too far from 2000 MMR. I think he has like 1900 or something. Maybe he even got 2K before.
I think it's like 1800.
Yeah, I feel like if you would have 2K, then you know, XLord would probably say, okay, well, get 2K1, 2K2, or whatever. If Remo was not using Back to Warcraft and posting just changes to like his own YouTube and stuff, would you be okay? Like, and if he was doing that and Blizzard were still taking his changes, would you be more okay with it, or do you feel like the fact that he used Back to Warcraft to post stuff is what gave sway to some of his words?
I think it's like a great line, because like everyone should be able to post their ideas, right? No one should be at fault for posting ideas, and it's not Remo's fault or anyone's. And we all know the reality is currently for over 2 years, Remo's notes have been copy pasted. So Remo should have taken note, but I don't think the talks of balance changes would have been applied more if Remo did it in his own streams instead of Back to Warcraft, because I think Back to Warcraft streams gives the illusion that is what the entire community wants, and he's like a Democrat elected leader, except he wasn't really elected, and he might not be the voice of everyone, right? So
Grubby also made a bunch of patch note wish lists. So what do you guys think about this? Like, you know, Grubby also making some suggestion, and
I think you should show the orc suggestion. I think that one's the most impactful.
I only have this screenshot, I think.
Oh, I see. So I think some of the buffs, like mirror image buffs, and maybe the Great Hall buff, I'm not really sure, came from Grubby's patch note wish list. I would personally say that out of all the wish lists and balance talks out there that I've seen, so I've seen Remo's, Grubby's, Todd's, and maybe a few others in the Western scene.
I didn't make any wish list, so you didn't see mine.
Just talks, yeah. I felt like Todd was the most balanced when he talks about like how he wants to balance the game, or the way he talks. I would trust him more. Of course,
when I said that Peasants' hit points should be doubled and human would still be bad, that speaks to you?
No, but I'm assuming they're more reasonable. I'll be quite honest. I look up to Grubby as a player. He's a great player. But I think he doesn't really play Warcraft much nowadays, so he might not be on top of the meta. And I feel Grubby is one of those players, like Happy, who don't really care about balance. He just wants to dominate. And of course, like Blizzard, he's a core figure. He's a core figure in the Western community. He speaks English. His stream is big. He's trustworthy. He has that validation. And a lot of the previous bounces were in effect due to his belief, right? For instance, even the PTR 1, in which Ghouls got buffed by 30 HP, that came from Grubby's ideas. However, I feel like Grubby, when I look at Grubby's patch notes, this is my personal belief, it doesn't seem like he cares about balancing the game, and he just wants to play Warcraft once in a while and stream and just dominate everyone and just go back. At least that's what I got out of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just want to say he's a retired player. He's not a professional. He's not in the competitive scene. So I personally would not be basing balance off him or me, in fact. And instead, we should be asking players like Lin or Focus if we're going for the orcs.
Yeah.
Even Hitman. Yep.
LawLiet, you wanna weigh in?
그냥 보다가 생각이 났는데
I just thought of it while looking at this.
인구수 1 하면 밸런스가 좀 맞지 않을까 갑자기 그런 생각이 들었어요.
무슨 일?
인구수.
인구수 다시 뺀다고요?
예.
He says that he's thinking that if you remove that one food, orc starts with 11 food compared to everyone else, maybe the game will be more balanced.
그 휴호전도 그렇고 오원전도 그렇고 헤드헌터 쓸 수 있는 게 그 1 인구수 때문이니까.
He says that human versus orc, undead versus orc, the reason that trolls are viable is because of that one food buff.
그리고 이제 그 오나전이 지금 패치로 우크한테 좀 좋아졌으니까 그거를 빼서 좀 맞춰야 되지 않을까.
And he says that because with the patch changes, orc versus night elf seems to favor orc. I think it makes sense that the one food additional should be taken out and then balanced out.
Okay. It seems like I got another screenshot here of Grubby's wishlist, and a lot of changes in the current PTR is either from Grubby or from Remo's. We see he suggested Siphon change. He suggested Control Magic Tier 3 upgrades. So, and some Siege Engine changes as well, even though those were the one. And Mechanical Critter Sight Range, I think is pretty clear, came from him. That was something that he asked for. Polymorph mana cost -20, that's also him. Mortar Team HP, it wasn't the exact number, but he also suggested get some extra hit points. Only Light Cast Speed was him as well. So when you look at this, you can clearly see that Blizzard is drawing a lot of inspiration from Grubby or Remo's changes.
So Blizzard just watching Remo and Grubby's YouTube and copy. Why we talk about it?
Yeah, but like
maybe I have to go to talk with Grubby and Remo. Please change something. Then next PTR will be better.
Yeah, but you also have your own YouTube. So do you wish that Blizzard would pay more attention to your changes and also use yours, or do you just think there is like a better way to handle everything?
Maybe I made some video with English. Please, Blizzard, watching my YouTube. No more Grubby and Remo.
I just want to say that some people might think that there's like a very recent phenomenon, just this patch. If you look at the patch notes in the past, the one food additional, the one armor nerf for the breaker, all those changes, by the way, came straight from Remo and Grubby's balance patch ideas from over 2 years ago. So they have been having major influences, or more like copy paste, since the past 2 years, a bit over that. So they probably should be well aware of their effects, their influence at this point. So please don't think of it as, this is like the first time, so they were unaware. This practice has been continuing for over 2 years now.
Yeah, but what about my point that Remo and Grubby is like almost the only two guys that made a precise wish list like this, and like a
Yeah, that's true.
very detailed patch notes. Like if you're Blizzard, you said yourself they don't have the resources maybe to go around and collect feedback from everybody, so they're gonna find, I guess, this type of stuff, very detailed stuff that seems to make sense, and go for it. Nobody else really has done as much as them in terms of that. I think like last time people started giving feedback, and there was maybe like 7 to 8 people that made their own patch notes. So I kind of feel like we need to encourage top pros, top players to do more their own patch notes like this. Well, like if LawLiet will make a text like this and make every suggestion that he can, maybe Blizzard might pay more attention to it. So maybe that's the way, LawLiet. Instead of just like making a YouTube video, I mean, you could do a video, but also have something like this in writing with exact changes that you want to see, because then it will be much easier for Blizzard, I think, to know where your mind is at in terms of the exact change that you want. You agree, right?
네. 저걸 안 하는 이유가
The reason I don't do this is
일단은 지금 한 종족의 선수이기도 하고
because right now I am a player of one race.
그리고 이제 하나를 바꾸면 종족이 4개이기 때문에 다른 쪽에서 분명히 일이 일어날 거예요.
And the reality is, if I change one part of a race, it would affect all other races. So,
물론 제가 해설도 하고 랜덤도 하면서 종족을 여러 가지를 봤지만
So while I've been casting, by the way, LawLiet AccCaster in Korea when he plays Warcraft, and playing random, I have played with the different races, but
밸런스를 맞추는 건 또 다른 문제이기 때문에
trying to balance the game is another topic, and
쉽게 접근할 수 있는 문제가 아니어서 좀 어렵네요.
It's not an easy problem to fix, so this is pretty difficult.
So you don't see yourself ever doing this type of patch notes changes as a text?
간단하게 몇 개는 가능한데 구체적으로 하기에는
A couple of
어려워.
simple things I can do, but extensively it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, probably time consuming. Also, if you're a top pro, you're usually focused on practicing and playing well. Okay, we can go through the rest.
I have some suggestion.
Yeah.
지금 PTR 전에 생각을 했던 건데요.
So he's talking about before the PTR.
오크가 이제 휴먼전 언데전에 좀 괜찮았고 나일전이 불리했잖아요.
So Orc is favored versus human and undead, and a bit unfavored versus Night Elf. So right now this is not the PTR.
그래서 인구수 1을 그걸 줄이면은 그런트 헤드헌터 빌드가 좀 죽어요.
So by the way, if you reduce that one food additional from the start, you will actually lessen the impact of Headhunters.
그래서 오크 대 휴먼을 좀 맞출 수가 있고.
That could probably help balance the Orc versus human, and
나이트 엘프를 E티어 울트라 비전하고
giving Night Elf Ultra Vision at tier 2 instead would.
그리고 이제 골블린 알케미스트의 힐을 모두 다 들어가게.
If Goblin Optimus Heal Spray gave heal to everyone, every unit, like I'm talking both sides here.
그러면은 이제 조금 맞춰지지 않을까. 오나드도 맞춰지고 나머지도.
Then wouldn't the balance of the matchups be equalized? So Orc versus Night Elf will be equalized, and the other races as well for the Orc matchups.
그래서 일단은 그거까지는 생각을 해봤어요.
So he said like up to there, that was what I was thinking at the time.
Okay, sounds good to me. I do think that though, if you make this type of suggestion, maybe it should be more in depth and ideally with some sort of text like this, because then Blizzard will really get it. But obviously it's up to entirely everyone how they will do it. Okay, let's keep going through the changes. So we're about to get into Night Elf. We're gonna go to the initial ones. In the first PTR, So Tranquility cooldown increased from 60 to 120 seconds. Starfall cooldown reduced from 180 to 120 seconds. And Starfall mana cost reduced from 200 to 150. AccountCreate, go first.
The Tranquility cooldown probably needed a nerf. By the way, I don't play Keeper myself, so I can't comment. Let's be honest with the Starfall one, that has no impact on the other matchups at all. No one goes Bottom first versus the other races. If anything, this only impacts Knight of Mirror and should buff Bottom, of course. I think Bottom's actually getting a huge nerf in the Knight of Mirror due to Ultra Vision removal. So maybe that's not. This is an irrelevant change for the Starfall in the competitive scene. However, in 4v4, maybe it's different. You know, Starfall is getting a buff there, so there's that.
LawLiet?
트랭킬리티는 90초 정도 했으면 좀 좋았을 것 같고.
He says that it would have been nice if Tranquility was 90 seconds instead.
스타폴은 의미 높지만 버프는 해줘야 되는 스킬이 아니었나.
Starfall change is completely useless, but pointless. But yeah, it needed a buff.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like when something goes from 60 seconds to 120 seconds, it always seems a little silly and like way too much at once. Like a super drastic change, especially because it doesn't feel like we're going to get many patches. This almost feels like perhaps the last patch ever, or the last for a long time. I don't think they're going to do another patch in 6 months. So everybody knows that, like we haven't talked about it, but everybody knows that, you know, they really need to get it right with this because we're going to be on this patch for a very long time now. So Druid of the Talon, Crow form now does piercing damage. It used to do magic, just so you know. Entangle duration on units reduced from 9:18:30 to 8:16:24. And then Thorn Aura increased from 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 to 0.15, 0.30, 0.45. AccountCreate.
So Druid of Talon does piercing damage. By the way, the damage of the talons have been nerfed afterwards. So if you guys actually play PTR with Talon versus Undead, well, first of all, we're not solving the issue, which is the core problem of like the Undead Fast expansion. But taking that outside of account, I would say that Crow Form and PTR 1 were like the gods of air versus Undead. It like 5-shot destroyers. I tried the PTR 2 Talons, and it does tickle damage now. So just keep that into account versus destroyers. So I'm not really sure. I guess it might be used as a support unit. We'll have to see. But Talons seem quite underwhelming for me versus air Undead now. So maybe there is no real difference. I can see it being used like super late game in Twisted Metals, maybe, but I'm not really sure. We'll have to see. As for the Thorns Aura, that just means that Elf Mirror is probably going to be lots of Archer Talon mirrors, and I'm kind of worried about that. And realistically, the only reason, let's be honest, like 45% Thorns Aura is kind of ridiculous. The only reason we have this ridiculous number is because Dreadlord has a 50% ridiculous number. And by the way, Dreadlord's Vampiric Aura also works when they right-click buildings. So because like things are now getting overtuned, we have to overtune other stuff to try to balance the game. It just turns into an overtune of like Dota-like units over time, Dota-like spells. As for entangling roots, right now Keeper's using all matchups as like how Night Elf is fixated and balanced towards the other races. I personally think this is ridiculous as a Night Elf player, especially because Undead's already favored versus Night Elf, and the biggest change is the fact that when you entangle at level 2 a footy right now, it's around generally like an entangle and 3 hits at level 3 Keeper to kill a footy. That's going to change to 1 entangle and 5 to 6 hits on a footy. That's a profound number. That's a profound change, right? So during the time that you kill a footy, you are getting hit by the Archmage, like 2 or 3 more additional fireballs. So I'm worried about what could be the result of such. But mostly outside that, my biggest worry is the fact that this is a nerf for Night Elf versus all 3 races. And there are matchups like versus Undead in which Night Elf actually needs a buff. So going about trying to nerfing the core, a core part of the race, it might have like unexpected impacts in the game balance. And oh, by the way, yesterday, Hitman, he's an orc player in North America. He even commented, and I have a picture of it, in which he said that Elf is now a garbage race with the Entangling Root nerf, at least versus Orc. So I might send a picture to Todd if I have it, but Hitman's an Orc player. He's very biased against Elf. He hates Elf. And for him to go into the length of saying that, maybe we should take a relook into it. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't take one-off comments like this that seriously, you know, in the PTR as well. Like he probably hasn't played 0 games on the PTR as well, if I had to guess. So yeah. LawLiet, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, 그 탈론 피어싱 데미지는 너무 좋아져가지고 데미지 조절을 좀 잘해야 될 것 같고요.
He says because Talon becoming a crow form with piercing is going to become a very good unit, so we have to take into mind. We have to keep track of like how much damage it should do.
그 손조라는 너무 세서
He says Stormtower is way too powerful, so
10, 25, 40으로 조절하는 게 좋지 않을까 싶고요.
he says like 10, 20, 35 would have been better, maybe.
그리고 인탱글 같은 경우에는 이거 사소해 보이는데 굉장히 큰 너프여서
He says Entangle is because it's used everywhere. It's going to be a major nerf.
좀 과한 게 아닌가 싶습니다. 여러 가지랑 다 겹쳐가지고 오크전도 힘들어졌어요.
So it seems quite excessive, especially when taking into account all the other balance changes that are taking place in other races.
Do you feel like Entangle was in a good place and didn't need to be changed beforehand, or?
하나만 건드렸어야 되는데 오크 상향을 많이 시켜주고 딴 것도 해가지고 저거까지 또 건드리면은 안 된다.
He says like if we were only touching one spell and the whole balance, one thing in the balance patch, he wouldn't say much. But because we're changing, updating a lot of stuff, especially like Orc is getting a lot of buffs, he thinks it's not a good approach.
All right. Mountain Giants now start with +2 armor. Hardened skin damage reduction reduced from 12 to 8. And Ultra Vision now requires tier 2. I can't create. Don't go too long, please.
Yeah, so Mountain Giants for me personally is one of those units I actually don't want to see masked in 1v1. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Could be different for other people. The only times I see Mountain Giants today in the pro scene is in Concealed Hills versus Human from time to time. So it's not really like a popular unit anymore. And by the way, Concealed Hills is a map with a fountain, so maybe that's why. I don't know how much of a buff or nerf the Mountain Giant is with the PTR because I've not tested it. So I have no comments there. I'm a bit confused personally why we're updating this unit. So there's that. And what was the other one that you referenced?
Ultra Vision now requires tier 2.
I think that's actually a major nerf that alone could like favor the Orc in the Knight versus Orc matchup. I think realistically, the reason that Knight versus Orc, a lot of Orcs complain is Knight having the ability to have Ultra Vision means that they can intercept units, they can hide their protectors. The moment the scout passes, they know exactly when to drop, make a protector, a surprise protector, or to run around, like escape the Blade Master view to get level 2. All that play disappears without Ultra Vision. So personally, I'm kind of worrisome of like Ultra Vision alone having how much of an impact versus Orc. And maybe Ultra Vision needs a nerf to balance, to correctly balance. We could have better fine-tuned the numbers instead of just effectively removing at tier 1. And also, Ultra Vision being removed means Podum's not viable in Knight of Mirror, at least with the Podum hunts, which basically we just effectively remove one of the strategies in the game that doesn't affect other matchups, but affects just Podum players in the Knight of Mirror itself.
LawLiet?
Yeah. 지금 어느 부분이었죠? 하던 게?
그 마운틴 자이언트하고 울트라 비전 티어 2.
Yeah, +2
그 마자
armor
같은 경우에는
and hardened skin.
yeah. 솔직히 그 계산식을 잘 몰라가지고 잘 모르겠고요.
He says because I don't really know the calculations for Mountain Giants, I really don't know much.
대신 그리고 어차피 마자는 잘 쓰이지가 않아서
And because mountain giants are rarely used,
그 별로 체감이 안 될 것 같고
so it shouldn't have much of an impact if at all.
울트라 비전은 이제 오크전에서 좀 타격이 큰 패치인데
So Ultra Vision is going to have a large impact, particularly versus Orc.
게임은 재밌어질 것 같아서 저는 환영합니다.
He thinks that despite that, the game might become more fun, so he is fine with this.
Yeah, so just a reminder that every Warcraft game starts during the daytime, but very quickly there is nighttime, and then yes, usually if you open Hunter Soul at some point, you're gonna get Ultra Vision to have the extra vision to fight with. So yeah, those seem like Night Elf against Orc is where it's gonna affect the most. Okay, let's keep going. Immolation, that's a big one. Immolation mana drain reduced from 7 to 5. Immolation damage per interval increased from 10, 15, 20 to 15, 20, 25. Immolation duration reduced from 1 to 0.05 seconds. So it's like completely reworked, I guess, in a way. It does way more damage than it used to. But also it was buggy when it was initially announced. And then they reverted the damage from 15, 20, 25 back to 10, 15, 20. You know anything about that? I can't create.
I tried Immolation on both PTRs. So I would say in PTR 1, Immolation was busted. And I'm trying to be nice here. I think PTR 1 Immolation, level 3 or sometimes level 2 Demon Hunter was able to creep the red camp in Last Refuge all by himself and still have like at least a third HP left over. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty fun experiment. I never expected Immolation to be that good. PTR 2, Immolation is completely different now. I would say overall Immolation felt underwhelming now. I could see Immolation becoming a problem in Concealed Hills, where there's poison camps versus human. But outside that, I don't think it's going to be of much use. Maybe in certain scenarios, it's a complete flip-flop from PTR 1. And I would say Immolation level 2, Immolation is going to be a skill in which, just like as it today, it's probably not worth leveling up. Which I think is a big problem because in Warcraft, when you hit level 3, there's a big spike when your spells get level 2, and it's going to be the case that most players have level 2 and a level 1 spell at level 3. So like maybe Nova level 2 and Dark Ritual level 1. I think with the current Immolation, it's going to be the case that you probably do not want to do that. So you're just going to be stuck at level 1 spells, maybe 111, as it is currently from time to time. And I think Immolation by itself is not a good game design. It is super rewarding to... It either has to be busted in the sense that it has to be so good that it shows up in the pro scene, because the opponent has to spread units, right? When the players are good, they will spread their units to not get immolated. But if they're not like completely broken, they also become really worthless really fast in the sense that if the opponent knows how to spread his units, now you're just wasting a skill point and your moon juice is disappearing fast. So if Immolation were to be balanced for the top tier, S tier players, what's going to end up being the case is everyone else is going to suffer. And Immolation is a very simple spell to use. You just turn it on and right click a peasant. But it might be very difficult for like players of lower levels to micro against. So I think maybe Immolation design is not a good design in and of itself. And the reality is if you're going Immolation build, you probably need evasion. Just due to the moon juice constraint. So maybe we should then buff evasion. And then it really depends on the case of like, how do we want the game to go? Do you want a game in which we have a hero that's constantly immolating on units? Or like, is that healthy for the game? Would the pros like it? Would the player base like it? So yeah.
LawLiet?
That said, like I think it's a good change considering no one uses this spell overall.
Yeah.
In most matchups.
PTR 1 때는 이몰레이션 솔직히 너무 사기였고요.
He says in PTR 1, with all seriousness, Immolation was kind of a scam.
제 2 같은 경우에는 확실히 쓸 만큼 좋아졌다.
He says in 2, it has gotten good as you can use it. Yeah.
근데 이제 이게 중요한 게 어느 종족전에 쓸 수 있는가를 봐야 되는데
He says that the main issue, main core problem to tackle into is exactly what matches would I be using this against.
휴먼전에서 적당하면 밸런스가 좋을 것 같고요.
He says versus human, if the numbers are moderate, it might be balanced.
만약에 너무 세면
If
문제가
it's too
되지
strong,
않을까.
it will become a problem.
그래서 데미지를 이제 휴먼전의 결과를 보고 한 번 더 조절하든지 뭐 냅두든지 해야 될 것 같아요.
He says we'll probably have to adjust numbers after this, or just keep that into my account.
But do you guys like that they're trying to change and make a spell that we never see actually be part of the game, or do you think it's like the units maybe it doesn't really matter?
질문이 정확히 뭐죠 이게?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Do you like that, like this is one of the least seen spells in the game? Do you like that they're trying to make it part of the game where we're actually seeing it, or do you think it's unnecessary for the game to be fun? And
지금 이 스펠이 이몰레이션이 안 쓰이잖아요. 이게 더 쓰이게 있을 수 있는 게 좋은 아이디어인가? 아니면 이게 쓸모없나?
뭐 지금까지 안 쓰였으니까 그래도 쓸 수 있게 해주는 거는 좋은 것 같은데 OP냐 아니냐의 그 경계선만 지키면 좋은 변화일 것 같아요.
He says because it's not used right now, the fact that we can buff it so that we can see it is a good thing. We'll have to see if it's OP, overpowered or not. So we'll have to keep in track.
all right, let's go to Undead. Anti-magic shield can now receive the same summon magic damage inflicted by Dispel, Purge, and Abolish magic. Unholy Aura movement speed bonus reduced from 0.1, 0.175, 0.25 to 0.1, so level 1 is the same. Level 2, it's like the equivalent of 0.150 instead of 175. And then level 3, instead of 0.25, it's 0.2. Account create, go first.
I think anti-magic definitely needed some changes. It didn't make sense that one unit can entirely counter all magic in the game. So basically, sometimes they can effectively remove heroes in a hero craft game. Warcraft is very hero based, and if undead 3 heroes are useful and the opponent's heroes just disappear in its after effects late game, I think that doesn't make sense enough by itself. Especially when Banshees also have Possess, which is one of the best spells in the game, I feel. Hopefully, I noticed that on PTR2 that anti-magic cannot be dispelled by destroyers. So I think that's actually a good change, and maybe it was unintentional, but then Undead Mirror won't be like max destroyers, right? So I think this is a good change. I'm hesitant about the Purge and Dispel portion of anti-magic. So I'm not in that line. Personally, I'm in the line of reducing anti-magic's ability to get hit. So maybe instead of 300 right now, it'll be like 225. But that's a different topic. And what's the other one? Sorry.
The other one was, they remove in the second PTR the fact that you could dispel it.
Yeah.
The other one was Unholy Aura, the movement speed.
So the Unholy Aura, I think speed auras in general create such an exaggerated play, especially in late game, especially in larger maps like Twisted Meadows, in which it becomes like a Dota-like game in which the one side cannot do anything. They just run it. There's no micro. You just try to catch up. The other side just gets to hit, run, and there's no counter play. So I think lowering this movement speed is actually beneficial for the game. And I believe Endurance Aura is getting the same results in terms of the decrease. So I think it's a fair change. But yeah.
LawLiet?
안티매직 쉘은 좀 과한 너프인 것 같고요.
He says anti-magic nerf is quite extreme, and he thinks it would have been better to like lower the damage that it saves.
하는 게 나을 것 같고, 어널리 오라 요즘 그 이속 오라의 값어치가 너무 높아져서.
He says as for Unholy Aura, well, the movements in general is just like too utilitarian.
뭐 인듀어런스 같은 똑같이. 근데
it's just like Endurance Aura.
저거 좀 과하지 않을까 생각도 조금 들고요.
He says like he kind of worries at the same time that this might be a bit too excessive.
그래서 한번 좀 봐야 될 것 같아요. 이게 적당한지 너무 과한지는 봐야 될 것 같습니다.
So he said he will have to see whether this is good enough or a bit too extreme. He's not sure until after trying.
Yeah, they did revert the animated steads later on, so we don't need to talk about this. Ghoul Frenzy change. Ghoul Frenzy now has 30 HP to Ghoul's base health. That was something that's a lot of people were talking about because we were seeing more Ghouls recently, but that was also reverted as seen. Where is it? Ghoul Frenzy change reverted, no longer gives 30 HP bonus. I guess even though it was reverted, we could talk about it. Do you guys think that would have been a huge mistake? And are you happy with that it was reverted? Also, Disease Clouds was reduced. Let's do 3 at once still. Disease Cloud was reduced from 90 to 75 seconds. And Obsidian Statue. Okay, let's just do those 2 first.
I personally think, this is my personal take, I think ghouls are overpowered, straight out. I think ghouls have broken a lot of the game balance. Ghouls are very useful versus elf, very useful versus human, and very useful versus orc. So if we were to buff it, at least if we were to buff it 30 HP, I think ghouls have been the kings of land, period. And I think ghouls are also one of those game designs in which like lower level players struggle to use them. But you've really seen the competitive scene, how strong ghouls can be. I think ghouls, along with the fast expansion right now, maybe it's due to the fact that you have to, one of them is the reason why undead versus human, undead versus elf is such a difficult matchup for the elf and humans. So maybe it's just the fast expand portion, maybe it's the ghoul portion, but at the same time, I also understand ghouls are necessary to verse orc right now, to verse trolls. So I'm not gonna comment much on what ghouls should be. I personally think they need a nerf, but won't comment there. But I think adding 30 HP is a bit ridiculous in its current state.
Yeah, it would have been with Frenzy, of course, so on tier 3.
Yeah.
LawLiet?
굴 프렌즈는 그 공속 버프 이후에 너무 좋아져서 저거
He
좀
says
좋아하더라고요.
he says after the Ghoul Frenzy upgrade buff, it went from 25 to 35%. It's become too good of a unit.
그래서 30%로 너프를 하면 했지 저 패치는 사실 있을 필요가 없는 패치라고 생각을 하고요.
He says 30% 아니야 30 HP.
그 30% 공속. 좀
he says like
너프.
he says Ghoul Frenzy to 30%. The Ghoul Frenzy so would have been enough.
너프가 필요하지 버프는 안 필요한 것 같습니다.
He says ghouls need a nerf, not a buff.
Okay, how would you nerf them then?
I think he set the 30% on the tier 3 instead of 35% right now.
Okay. And Disease Cloud?
I think that's a good change. But no comments there.
이 정도는 적당한 너프?
He says this amount is a moderate nerf. Yeah.
Okay. Obsidian statue level increased from 2 to 3. So basically they will give more experience. Do you like this? Statue is one of the most talked about units. They're obviously very good.
I mean, personally, I think it makes perfect sense that statues should give level 3 like experience points, but at the same time, this is only gonna show up in undead versus orc. And this won't have much, if any, impact in the pro scene in undead versus human, undead versus elf.
Well, actually, wait, the Spirit Touch mana restore reduce also. Yeah, we should.
Oh yeah, that was what came out. Yeah, that's
from
all
3
came
to 2.
So I just wanted to take note. I didn't know until recently. I watched LawLiet's video. Apparently, there's a bug with statues right now. You can stack statue mana restore. So if you have one in auto cast and the other one you're pressing BC, you're casting it manually, you will stack statue mana regen. So you can have up to, apparently I tested it, you can have up to 9 mana per every 3 seconds. And in the pro scene, I noticed that 120 and Happy do it quite a bit, so it'll be closer to 6 mana per 3 seconds in certain moments. It'll probably average more like 4.8 mana per 3 seconds. The unfortunate part of this is most players who cannot do this, outside the top players, they are only gonna get 3 mana per second in the current one. 3 mana per every 3 seconds. So this becomes an issue of I think we have to first fix that bug itself, I think that is a bug that needs to be addressed really quick. Because if you can get 6 or 9 mana per every 3 seconds right now, that's basically unlimited Coil Nova when you have time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bad game design because like most undeads are unable to do that, so they won't see that after effects. It also means that when statues mana restore goes from 3 to 2, that's a significant drop in that abuse for the pro undead. So I'm not sure how that's going to impact for the undead players with this nerf at the pro scene.
Right.
그 경험치를 많이 주는 거는 의미 없는 패치 같고요.
He says that the giving more EXP is a completely useless nerf above a nerf. Yeah.
왜냐면은 한 개당 경험치 20 더 주는 건데
Because it's only giving 20 more EXP per kill, and
이제 프로 선수의 경기에서 한 경기에 옵시가 많이 터지지가 않아요.
in a pro game, the chances of the statues dying, exploding is very rare. Not that many.
그래서 그거는 너프가 아닌 것 같고.
So he said he doesn't think this is a nerf at all.
그 마나 그 스피릿 터치가 굉장히 큰 너프인데.
He says that the mana spirit touch is a huge nerf, and
그래서 대신 체력 50 정도 올려주는 버프가 있어야 되지 않을까. 저 너프 좀 커 보이거든요.
So he says that maybe statues need a 50 HP buff to compensate since it's such a huge nerf.
그리고 패치는 괜찮은 게 그 브릴리언스도 너프 했었잖아요. 그래서 마나 올려주는 게 값어치가 높으니까.
And if you take into account the previous patches in which Brilliance Aura was nerfed, I think this route makes sense with mana to keep up to date.
뭐 마나 조금 줄이는 건 되는데 좀 과하지 않을까? 뭐 그런 생각은 좀 들고요.
So he thinks it makes sense that mana is getting reduced, but he also thinks maybe this might be too extreme. So we'll have to see.
And what about the bug that you talked about? Does he know about this, and like what does he think about it? Should it be part of the game? Is it considered a bug, or is it something that maybe is just there and like we should learn to deal with? Because like in the history of like StarCraft or Warcraft, there's been a lot of things like this where we're not sure this was intentional. We think probably not, but it's just kind of part of the game, and then we learn to deal with it.
그 스태츄 그때 비디오 받았을 때 BC 있었잖아요. 두 번째 스태츄 같이 하는 거. 이건 버그냐 아니면 이건 그냥 피처냐 아니면 그거 있는 게 낫냐? 이거 어떻게 하는 게 맞는 거냐? 고치는 게 맞나 아니면 그냥 냅두는 게?
제가 잘 실험해본 거 아니고 유튜브인가 중국 건가 뭐 어디서 봤는데.
I saw this effect in like some stream and like maybe some Chinese stream.
이 마나 너프 하면은 냅두는 게 낫지 않을까요? 그냥 그것까지 까버리면 2배로 까이는 거니까 너무 과할
He
것 같아요.
says that if we're gonna nerf the statues like this, maybe we should just leave it as it is, because then otherwise it will be like a double nerf to the undead players.
Yeah. Okay, so if most of the changes to undead go through that are listed in this, then you're fine with leaving the statue as currently is. But you touched on something important, AccCreate, is that it's not that easy to do. So like newer players, they won't have the same mana regen that the top players have.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that's a problem?
I think that's a problem. Also, it's not as difficult as people claim out to be. So I think one of the bigger issues is most undeads are not aware of this. Most players who are playing.
Yeah.
So and second, I had a 1600er try it out who have never played undead. And he said after 2 days, it became normal. So it's actually something that you can get accustomed to really quick, like within a matter of days. So I don't think it's difficult at all if a 1600 MMR is able to do it, who has never played undead. But at the same time, should this be part of the game? I am personally in disagreement, but at the same time, I am aware that the pro scene right now is balanced with the pros doing this for undead. So due to that nature, I'll just leave it be. I just wish it would be addressed when it can, but I think there's more pressing concerns right now with balances.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. There is not many changes left, actually. We've gone through almost all of them, so we're going to take a look here at the updates that happened. See if there's anything we skipped. Oh, I think, yeah, we didn't talk about the Spellbreaker armor being increased like it used to be from 2 to 3. So, LawLiet, are you okay with this, or do you think that this was unnecessary?
반드시 해줘야 되는 업데이트였고
He says this is like a necessary update that should have happened, and
지난번에 휴유전에서 이거 나온다고 너프한 거는 정말 말도 안 되는 짓이 아니었나.
he says nerfing this in the past because we wanted to see it less in humor was a bit nonsensical.
And there was only Breaker Wars too.
이제 휴먼에서 중요한 거는 파이오브 저거 되면 안 됩니다. 저거는.
He says that overfire cannot go through.
Oh, the overfire? Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, then we didn't really talk about it. So you don't want this to happen. Can you explain why?
그 325 골드에 10클러를 무제한으로 살 수 있는 거여서
He says for 325 gold, you can get unlimited plus 10 claws.
그 데미지가 말도 안 됩니다, 진짜.
He says the damage is nonsensical, it's ridiculous.
So what would you like instead?
그냥 저거는 건들면 안 되고 건들려면은 지금 휴먼이 좀 좋아졌으니까.
He says it's better not to touch this at all, and if we were to touch this, since in the other notes we're making the matchup of human versus undead better.
킬량 그 치감 효과를 좀 더 깎아야 된다고 생각합니다. 너프해야 돼요.
He says he thinks that the overfire, the heal effect that reduces heal should be nerfed a bit then, because there are other buffs and nerfs versus human versus undead with this patch.
Okay, it's the end of the. We're going offline. All right, let's see what else. The pretty big one. Lich Frost Nova damage reduced from 50, 100, 150 to 45, 90, 135. So Lich has become one of the most used builds of undeads. We see it a lot against human. We see it sometimes a little bit against orc, maybe not as much as at the top level. But it's even if it's not necessarily as first, the Lich is almost always there as second hero. So very, very big and important change here to one of the core heroes that we see in a lot of games. What do you guys think about this one? I can't create, go first.
I mean, on a surface level, I'm happy that Lich Nova is addressed. And it looks like from the undead side, they're receiving so many nerfs. But then I looked at the numbers carefully right now. 50 to 45, that's the active effect. That's 5 damage. And if we're going this route, personally, I think the bigger problem with Nova is 3 main things. One, it scales indefinitely. It's one of the few spells in game in which you can hit infinite units. Sure, you can say Clap hits infinite units, but Clap has a artificial cap by the melee unit size. Nova does very well versus air. You could have 100 food versus 100 food air fight, and Nova would impact all 100 units. You have to take it in note, like Phantom Knights only caps to 5 units in the game for comparison. And we really see that in Happy versus Chemical's game last time, where, if you see the damage graph of Lich, it was ridiculous at the end. So I think that needs to be it. I think every AoE spell in general should have some way to have a cap in this damage.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger problems with Nova is the long slow. By the way, level 3 Nova has an 8-second cooldown and an 8-second slow. So it's a perma slow. Once Lich hits 5, you have no counterplay. There is no way to micro against it. And I think the other problem is Ritual, Dark Ritual from level 2. It's kind of like unlimited Frost Nova versus human. And I think it's like the other implications of Frost Nova that's a more pressing concern than a Nova itself.
So if most people agree that Nova maybe needed to be changed a little bit or nerfed rather. So how would you have changed it yourself? You can think about that. You can think about that for a minute so that maybe you will have more ideas than if you answer directly. And in the meantime, we can ask LawLiet what he thinks about this.
일단 노바 데미지는 어차피 이게 데미지 캡이 없잖아요.
He says, as you know, Nova doesn't have a unit cap for damage.
그래서 뒤로 갈수록 이게 크게 의미 있는 것 같진 않고요.
So he says, as the game progresses to the late game, he thinks this nerf is not really impactful.
다른 것보다 그 언휴전에서 초반에가 조금 차이가 있지 않을까.
He says, other than outside that, he thinks the only major impact will be human versus undead versus, at the early game. now.
리치가 레벨 3 찍고 노바 2스킬로 일꾼 잡으러 갈 때
He says when Lich hits level 3 and tries to kill workers, peasants now.
이제 노바 두 방에 일꾼 피가 10 늘었으니까
He
30
says
정도 피가 남잖아요.
he says when you Nova the peasant now at level 3, due to the reduction of the damage of Nova and the peasant HP buff, there's gonna be 30 HP peasant left over.
여기서 조금 의미가 있을 것 같고
So he said
다른 거에서는 크지 않을 것 같다.
So he says in here it will be impactful. In the other parts of the game, he doesn't really think so.
Okay, and if he could have changed it himself, would he have wanted something different than what's listed here? And then how about you, account create? Did you think?
I mean, I said it before. Personally, I think every AOE in the game should have some kind of cap.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like infinite scaling, especially if you play 4v4 and you go 400 food worth of air units. One Nova will counter all 400 food, which is quite amazing as a spell. So there's that. That way that the cap is not impactful for most of the game until the late game, right? You're not going to see 80 food fights, 100 food fights in 1v1 often, unless you have an expansion. So other than that, I think there should be a reduction in how effective the frost effect is, at least as the game progresses. Outside that, I don't have much to comment about Nova.
Okay, let's keep going.
Should we ask LawLiet his ideas of what Frost Nova should be?
Yeah.
리치 너프 같은 거 의견 있냐고요?
네, 노바를 어떻게 할 거냐면 만질 거면
그 다른 스킬들처럼 8기에서 12기 사이 정도 맞는 데미지 캡을 설정을 하는 게 진짜 가장 공평하지 않을까요?
He says like every other AoE in the game, most every other AoE in game, maybe we should put a cap to 8 to 12 units to make it fair for everyone.
Yeah.
근데 지금 패치 노트에서 휴원전이 언데드한테 너무 안 좋아서
He says, but at the same time, in the current PTR patch, the human versus undead is really bad for undead. So
물론 확실한 건 아니고 그냥 노트만 봤을 때 제 생각인데.
He says it's not accurate. It's not for sure. He's just guessing from looking at the notes.
Yeah.
And
그 핀드 방어 1 정도는 올려줘도 되지 않을까.
He says this is happening. Maybe we should buff the fiend armor by 1.
Okay. Okay, I think I'd already seen. Okay, yeah, pretty big one here. Especially because we got 2 elves here, and as a human player, I can resonate with this. Haunted Goldmine build time increased from 100 to 100 seconds, so 20 seconds extra for the Haunted Goldmine. I guess talk about the Undead Expo and your experience facing it, and if you think this was justified and this is a change you like.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. If you play PTR 2, it's a notable change. Haunted feels like it goes up slower, much slower. I feel like maybe this is excessive, maybe this is required. I'm kind of worried the effects of this. Maybe we're going extreme on both ends. I'm not sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, because there was talk about Nerubians, about Sacrificial Skull helping Expo. And they didn't touch these, but instead increased the Haunted Goldmine by 20 seconds. So LawLiet, what do you think about this change and facing Undead expansion in general as Night Elf?
나이트 엘프에게는 굉장히 좋아진 패치라고 생각을 하고요.
He says versus for the Night Elf, it's been a great change for the Night Elf.
사실 땅이나 네르비안 타워나 에콜라이트 중에서 너프가 있을 거라고 생각을 했는데
He says he thought it would be one of the Blight, the Blight skill, or the Acolyte, or the Nervian Tower that will get a nerf, but
그 골드마인이 너프돼서 약간 의외긴 했는데 20초면은 사실 엄청 크기 때문에
He says because it was the Goldmine change, it was a bit unexpected, but at the same time, 22nd edition is a long time, so
그리고 이제 다른 것까지 너프가 좀 많아서 나온전이 나이트 엘프가 상당히 괜찮아지지 않았나 생각이 들어요.
He says with a lot of nerfs Undead is getting, or the other patch notes, maybe and the Night of Undead has gotten better for the Night of than before. So
그래서 아마 좀 두고 보고 뭐 너무 심하면 뭐 페어리 드래곤이라든지 그런 걸 좀 너프를 해서 만약
So he
나이트
says
엘프가 너무 유리하면 네.
So he says that we'll have to see, and if it seems too much of an advantage for the elf, maybe we'll have to nerf fairy dragons
뭐 그런 걸로 조절을 좀 해줘야 되지 않을까 생각이 듭니다.
to balance the game. Yeah.
Okay, I missed some changes from Orc earlier, so maybe we can go over these real quick. I think this is pretty much the last, or one of the last things that I saw. Endurance aura movement speed bonus reduced. I don't think we talked about this one, so it's getting the unholy aura treatments, where it's going to be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 to 0.1, so same on level 1, 0.15 and 0.2. There's been a lot of talk about speed auras because only Undead and Orc have them, and like good players know to use them really, really well. They move around like easily and freely and stuff. So, have you guys had a problem with endurance, with speed auras in the past, and do you think this is justified and should be there?
I think if Unholy is getting nerf movement speed, it makes sense that endurance should be the same. I don't know the impacts of this. Maybe this is excessive, maybe this is not. We'll have to see.
Yeah, because both auras, they provide more than just the speeds. For Undead, it's health points regen, and for Orc, it's attack speed as well from endurance. LawLiet, what do you think about this one?
뭐 이동 속도 워낙 워크래프트가 이속이 중요해서
He says
저거는
in Warcraft, movement speed is very important. So
언데드가 너프 들어가면은 오크도 같이 들어가는 게 맞는 것 같다고 생각을 해요.
nerf too. I think that's the right approach then.
All right. Witch Doctor healing words increased from 5 to 10 hit points. This I heard some people talking about this because, like, you can still kill it with one hit pretty much from anything. It seems like so. It seems like a bit of a weird change. Stasis
정말
trap.
의미 없는
He says this is such a meaningless patch change.
Yeah. Maybe they could have done like more, like so that it doesn't get one hit by almost everything. It's kind of weird, especially because Control Magic is now back to tier 3 as well, so it's like you don't even really care. And even if you did like 5 to 10, yeah, it's small. Stasis trap activation delay reduced from 9 to 7 seconds, so it's going to be way quicker for traps when they're set up. I mean, in 1-on-1, we never see Witch Doctors pretty much. I guess in 4v4, we see them quite a bit. And Brute Strain bonus increased from 100 to 150 points. This was a big topic for a long time for Orcs that said that they have good heroes, but their units are trash. Like, I heard that very often. So do you guys think this was funded, and what do you think of those changes? Account create, go first.
If you have seen PTR2 grunts, they are very, very tanky. I just want to say this is going from 700 HP to 850 HP. Bears have 960 HP, so take that all into account versus a tier 3 unit with a 4 food and costs more. You definitely see the impacts of the 50 bonus HP, and I'm not really sure what this. I think this buff for grunts was intended such that trolls are getting nerfed, so to compensate it, this is happening. I'm not exactly sure what the reaver of Headhunters and in general, if this is the right approach with brute strength. If at all, I think maybe we should not have had this, but you guys could differ.
LawLiet?
그런트가 일단 워낙 쓰레기 같은 유닛이어서 버프를 해주긴 해야 되는데
He says grunts are like trash units, so it needs some buff.
지금 메타가 그런트가 워낙 좋아서
He says that in the current meta, grunts are extremely good, so
아마 너무 센 버프지 않을까 생각도 합니다.
He says so maybe this buff is a bit too powerful, is what I think.
And
네, 그런트가 좀 버프가 있긴 있어야 됐어요.
He says grunts do needed some buff.
Yeah. And about the witch doctor, like we talked about the mountain giants earlier and like how it's, it wasn't used that much. Do you guys feel Blizzard should keep in mind other game modes? Because the mountain giants, they're a very important unit in 4v4 as well, for example. And in 4v4, when they were masked, they were like pretty obnoxious, they just like never die. And the witch doctor, we don't see them in solo, but we see them a lot in 4v4. So like the stasis trap activation. Do you think it's important for Blizzard to also keep the other game modes in mind when they do patches, or you think they should really just focus on solo?
I think everyone should be kept in mind for sure. I think solo should be the priority, but if the unit's not as much used outside solo, maybe you could, adjust it for the other team games too. The only times I've seen Witch Doctors ever be used in 1v1 is for the Sentry Wards, a Forsake game. Because you can drop them a lot and get the vision of the entire map without the opponent noticing. And that's for future maps where Hitman has a particular player, it's just him, so he plays off meta. He versus Talon users, and he likes to go Witch Doctors with Torrents and Demolishers with Burning Oil. The only gripe I have with Witch Doctors in general is I know a lot of players want to see them in 1v1. I think Witch Doctors are in an iffy spot, just like some other spells in the game or some other units, in which if the status traps become too good to be very useful at 1v1, it's going to become a mass status trap game. And mass status trap means a mass stun game for AoE, and I don't think that should be the approach that 1v1 should be going, in which the opponent's armies just stun the entire game. So if you want to keep buffing Witch Doctors to be used at 1v1, we probably would need to rework this unit. And I don't think Blizzard has the capability to do so. And if this buff has not much of a change in 1v1 impact in the meta, I think it's fine if we balance it for the 4v4s.
LawLiet, can you explain him maybe?
1대1에서는 사실 뭐 의미 없는 것 같고요. 어차피 안
He
쓰니까.
says in 1v1 it's probably a useless change because it's not used really.
네, 4대4는 듣고 보니까 조금 다들 쓸만해질 것 같다라는 생각이 듭니다.
He says for the 4v4 community, after hearing, he says it might become useful.
Okay. I don't think we talked about the Tavern Revive cost increase by 5% at all levels. So that's instant revive, basically. There were some arguments that maybe it's too strong to be getting the heroes straight back into the game, even though it's quite costly, and also they come back with not full hit points and 0 mana. Do you guys like this at all? Oh no, I think you did talk a little bit about it.
No, we talked about Tavern at the start. The altar.
Yeah, not about instant revive.
Yeah, I think Remo or Neo or someone else in the community actually did a calculation on this. I might be wrong. I might be completely off, but I think at level 10 it's like a 56 gold difference. Maybe the gold difference is not impactful at all. And it makes sense that we don't want to see much Tavern Revive abuse, but at the competitive scene, I haven't really seen that many Tavern Revives continuously, and when that happens, it's really only from the Archmage or the Keeper, maybe the Demon, maybe the Blade Master in 1v1 versus Night Elf. So like, basically the races in which their heroes would die more often is getting a nerf unexpectedly that we don't know and we cannot keep track of. I thought it was pretty silly, considering if at level 10 it's the gold difference is 56. If I'm right, I'm not sure what that really addresses outside just making the lines of the patch notes longer for Blizzard.
LawLiet?
이거는 조금 더 가격을 올려도 되지 않나 생각이 듭니다. 10%까지.
He says for this, maybe increasing the cost to even 10% isn't a bad idea.
5%는 그렇게 큰 차이가 안 나더라고요. 테스트 해보니까.
He says 5% isn't much of a difference when he tested.
Yeah.
할 거면 10% 정도 하고 그래야 이 패치가 의미가 있지 않나.
He says if you're gonna go this route, I think 10% makes more sense to be notable.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because at level 10 you said it was 56 more, so it's 1105. 56 doesn't feel like much.
Yeah.
Added to this, like gold-wise. I guess the lumber also is increased, right? I assume. Yeah, the lumber is usually more the problem, I guess. If you're going to for an instant revive, you have clearly the gold. But yeah, the lumber can be a big problem.
It could be like 12 lumber now, more at level 10. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there was one last thing. It was the items. And Wand of Illusion reduced from 3 to 2 charges. Wand of Mana increases mana still from 50 to 75. So remember, you have 2 charge, so you're basically stealing 150 and gaining 150. So they're trying to make it more equal with, I guess, greater mana. So yeah, those 2 items I can create.
I think the Wand of Illusion change is great. I am really worried with the Wand of Mana Steal from 50 to 75. I think that's extremely excessive. I think that can be game ending. With the current number, I'm assuming that will be nerfed. I think it's been addressed by multiple people. In case you don't know, Wand of Mana Steal has 2 effects. 1, it gives you mana, and 2, it takes away mana in a mana-based game. So you can, in the early game, if you get this, or in most stages of the game really, let's say that in Death Knight Mirror, one Death Knight player gets a Wand of Mana Steal. He effectively has 4 more coils, right? He gets 2 coils from the 150, and he removes 2 coils from the opponent. I think the game can just end there. Like, it will be decided by this item. And let's say let's say Death Knight used this versus an Archmage, who's a mana-based hero who in the early game. Archmage as a hero is completely shut down and is removed from the game. Let's say Archmage gets this versus Warden. Warden is completely shut down from the game. 150 mana just ends the hero. I think this is extreme and unwarranted. I also understand 50 Wand of Mana Steal was one of the worst items, one of the poorer items in the drops. Maybe we should nerf the other item drops to compensate and balance it. But even if we are going to the buff of the Wand of Mana, it should not be 75, period.
LawLiet?
뭐 일루전 같은 경우에는 반드시 있어야 되는 거고 잘 됐고요.
Illusion?
일루전.
Illusion은 so for illusion is a necessary change, a needed change, so it's good.
마나슬링은 이게 원래는 별로였는데 지금 메타상 너무 안 그래도 좋은데 좀 너무 과하지 않나.
He says Mana Steal is a bit mediocre, but it's good at this the current patch. So if you increase it to this, it's going to be probably excessive.
지금 지능 영웅들이 좀 활개치는 메타인데.
He says this patch is in which intelligence heroes shine a bit. So.
근데 그 지능 영웅들 간에서 마나 75를 가져온다. 너무 심하죠.
He says from that kind of balance, removing 75 from these heroes seems a bit too much.
조금 변경을 해야 되지 않나 생각을 합니다.
He says maybe we have to adjust these numbers a bit.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what he thinks.
What's a good number instead of, between 50 and 75? Would you go to 60 or 65?
60 maybe?
Okay. Circlet stats reduced from +2 to all stats to 112, but players can click to toggle the item to add an additional 1 stats to any attributes. So basically you choose whether you want to equip, strength, intelligence, or agility on your hero at the most out of all of this. Do you like that at all? AccCreate.
I am kind of scared with these ideas. This came from Remo's notes, and so there's a couple of things I want the community to keep in mind when they come up with balance ideas. A Warcraft team, if you introduce ideas outside simple number changes, can cause bugs. There could be bugs as a result. And once we try to fix those bugs, we might not have time to address anything else. So keeping it in the viewpoint of a practical standpoint as a software developer myself, I understand that ideas such as clicking and switching and having a dynamic item or a completely new idea of some sort could break the game in the sense that we will be introducing so many bugs that we are unaware of today. And it's just a reality of programming. With that said, for all the nuisances that comes with it, with potential bugs that might arise that we are not aware of, like right now we're having a problem with TP or the hero just randomly just turning into a building and not moving the rest of the game in PTR, or the items just disappearing from the game, all the items, or when you click the item disappears itself too. I don't think it's worth the effort to really look much into this. I don't think circuits play that much of a role outside maybe like really unlucky game once every like 30-40 games in Mirror. And realistically with like all the potential issues that might rise from this, I don't think is worth it. I think there are more pressing concerns with a limited resource. And I feel like toggling the item feels very gimmicky and very Dota-like and does not seem to fit right for Warcraft. If we were to do this, maybe Circa should give +2 by default to your main attribute for your hero. But even then, like I said, I am really worried about the unintended side effects of the game creating new bugs. And then that means that we have to resurface the cost of circuits in the shop. Maybe we'll have like 4 different circuits, you know, like a strength circuit, int circuit, AGI circuit, and a regular circuit, and that's how we'll balance it. Otherwise, if we are not doing that and we need to adjust the price of the new shop circuit, I'm also worried about the unintended consequences of now, in the past, some heroes need to get could only get 2 of the 3 items, boots, blue staff, and circuit. Now they might be able to get all 3. And what are the side effects of that? So yeah.
LawLiet?
사실 아이템들을 다 너프하는 거는 원래는 크게 찬성하진 않거든요.
He says, in general, as an overall thing, nerfing items across the board, he's not a fan of.
왜냐면은 이 게임은 영웅 게임이고 영웅의 가치를 떨어뜨리는 거기 때문에
He says this is because this game is a hero-based game, and lowering the value of heroes would.
그래서 아이템 너프하는 거는 별로 좋은 방식이 아닌 것 같고요. 만약에 이거 한다면
He says nerfing items in general he doesn't agree with, and if we are doing this,
그 지금처럼 고르는 게 아니고 그냥 주 스탯만 되게 하고 가격을 125원으로 바꾸는 게 좋지 않을까.
He says that instead of making the current click to switch stats, making the main stats apply instead directly, and reducing the cost to 125 might make more sense.
Okay. The auras that you can drop on the map, 2 of the best ones, usually if you don't have them. Legion Dunhorn, movement speed bonus reduced, so I think, yeah, it's the aura that you can select with your heroes was reduced, so they're reducing the ones that you can find as well, which were already lower than the ones that you can scale, and in this case it's from 0.075 to 0.05, and endurance get the exact same as well, so it's the Undead Death Knight aura and the TC aura that you can drop on the map. What do you think?
I mean, if the Undead Unholy Endurance is getting nerfed, it's just going to be the case that the items will have to see the same effects too. I don't know, like I said, I am not aware of, we'll have to see the effects of all these movement speed nerfs across the board and its impact in the pro scene.
LawLiet?
이게 5%는 사실 큰 도움도 안 돼서
He says 5%. He says 5% doesn't even make an impact, so he doesn't really like this change.
그리고 그러면 다른 아이템들은 버프됐잖아. 옛날에 플러스 4짜리가 플러스 5로.
And he says that the other items in the past have been buffed, so the +4s became +5s.
저 오라는 냅둬도 되지 않나 좀 과한 것 같다라는 생각이 듭니다.
So he says maybe these items for the aura should stay the same. See, it might be a bit too excessive to nerf it.
Yeah, most of these were already nerfed previously, where they were less than the level 1 of each one of those already. That includes Brilliance and Lionhorn as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. I just want to keep a note. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, there was a PTR being played in a tournament. Of course, like the player skill gap were very different, and it was not even at all. But to be quite frank, with the 0.05 currently, I think there was a game where the fish got it and it concealed hills, endurance aura. I didn't see any difference. Just keep in mind. But like I said, I shouldn't be making any judgments right now.
Yeah. I do think that's very often in those games. I mean, that's another topic of debate, but whether you find the best or the worst item is like a world of difference. And very often, that's all you have. It's the best or worst. There is almost no middle item. You know, if you're human, you're just praying that you find endurance or the undead aura or war drums, you know? But then if you find brilliance, it's total trash. Like some items are just really, really bad. So would you guys like to see less randomness in the items? Do you think that's something that's ever going to get fixed in Warcraft 3, or do you think it's just part of the game and nothing should ever be done? There was a lot of talks about this. Obviously, you will never be able to choose the item that you get for every camp, because that would be silly, but what about getting the choice between multiple items? Is that even feasible? Is that realistic? Kind of seems like not, with the balance not being like that active and only getting a balance, like it's almost like a redesign of the game. But would you guys still like to see some changes in regard to that, the randomness?
Personally, I like the randomness of Warcraft. It's not like chess where like you get the same result, same game every game at some point. And realistically, like you said, I don't know if Blizzard will ever have the resource to do this. I think this is quite unrealistic from a practical standpoint point of view. And I also kind of do agree there. If it kind of it's really bad when Death Knight gets an Unholy Aura item or Archmage gets a Brilliance Aura item. So I don't know how to surface it. I think realistically we might just have to accept it the way it is as part of the game. And for LawLiet, what do you think? Or do I need to translate this? 이거 번역할까요? 아니면 문제 알아들었어요?
그 아이템 여러 개 중에 고르는 게 낫냐, 뭐 지금 랜덤성이 나으냐, 뭐 이런 거였죠.
네.
뭐 사실 제가 게임하면서 아이템 때문에 스트레스를 너무 많이 받아가지고.
He says, when I'm playing the game right now, depending on item, I get so much stress from items.
뭐 고르면 좋긴 한데 이 랜덤성에다가 랜덤 데미지 이런 게 다 워크래프트의 매력이어서 이거는 그대로 가는 게 좋은 것 같습니다.
He says the randomness and everything, being part of Warcraft the game makes Warcraft the way it is. So I think it's just fine keeping as it is.
Is there something that you guys think is really missing from this patch? Like one change that you were really hoping would be there and wasn't at all? Or you think it's like so many things already, like it made you not even worry so much about one thing that you would have liked to see changed?
I think personally, like we have to first ask ourselves, how do we want to balance the game? Do you want to balance the game for the masses? Like most players play 4v4, and do we just want to see every unit and some dazzling effects and just ignore the pro scene? Or should we just focus on balance of the game and just the pro scene itself and fine tune the meta as it is? Or do you want to just reinvigorate the game in the competitive scene by balancing for new strats, which might not be balanced at all and will need adjustments? I think the worry for me is every patch we get, we never know if it's the last patch or it's a series of patches that will come forth afterwards. So if we are going the effects of, I want to see dazzling effect, I want to see huge meta changes, that would realistically just break the game balance in 1v1. And if there's no balance patch that comes out immediately after, or like up-to-date Blizzard, which we do not know, we might just be ending up killing the competitive scene completely. So that's like the worry I have. I wish I had like more awareness of like what the route of the balance patches would be. Is this the last one? Is this a series? Is there like 4 more in an X interval? How do we resurface it? How is the communication going? What are the perspectives? What do we want? I think because we don't know the answers to this question, I'm very hesitant in general to accept the ideas of like cool ideas I see in Reddit. I'm not a fan of it, or because, like I said, a lot of cool ideas can be very imbalanced in 1v1 competitive scene. And if there are no balance patches going forward, that will be the balance patch we are stuck with. So yeah.
LawLiet?
이거 정확한 질문이 어떤 거였죠?
He said, what was the original question?
Was there some change that you were really hoping would come through? And if so, then which one?
뭐 어느 체인지를 원하냐? 그게 안 보여준 거 있었냐? 그거에다 물어보는 거예요.
뭐 사실 뭐 지금 한 번의 패치보다는 지속적인 패치만 계속 되면은 전 좋을 것 같습니다.
He says instead of the current like one patch at a time, if this is a continuous patches, then he'll be fine with it.
Okay, then the last thing is what do you hope for exactly for the future, like from Blizzard? Do you hope that, and from this patch, do you hope that they're gonna keep on making PTR changes for like a couple of weeks and then they release the patch really late? Or honestly, anything you might be able to to think of, like what's the ideal scenario for you? Do you think they should patch at least once a year minimum? What do you think would be the bare minimum that you'd be content with? Because obviously we can't expect a patch, I think, every 3 months. That's unrealistic. So give your what you would like to have happen, but while being realistic, basically.
예전에 이제 스타2를 좀 즐겨 했었는데
He
그때
says in the
부러웠던 게
past, he says in the past I enjoyed playing StarCraft 2, and there was something I was jealous about.
그 맵이 자주 바뀌고 반년에서 1년 한 번 주기적으로 패치가 있는 거.
He says the maps constantly change, and every half a year or so there were updates in the balance patches.
물론 이제 워크래프트가 맵으로 밸런스 맞추는 게 굉장히 어려운 일인 걸 알지만
He says realistically, Warcraft, he understands it's a very difficult game to balance through maps.
뭐 그래도 바라는 거니까 바란다면은 맵을 좀 바꾸고 최소한 1년에 한 번은 큰 패치가 있었으면 좋겠어요.
He says still, if we're talking about idealistic, what I want, he wants the maps he wants that change from time to time continuous, and he wishes that there will be major balance patches at least once a year. That's what he wants, by the way.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm, like I said, I'm a software engineer in real life, so I understand the perspective of a software engineer at work, especially in a project that isn't really profitable. And so I think, like, from a practical point of view, we have to keep in mind that a lot of the things that we long is probably not going to happen. There's just limited resources, and given Blizzard's history in Warcraft, I wouldn't expect too much out of them. So if we're gonna patch stuff, I think our patches shouldn't be immediate. It should be tested. Maybe W2 Champions should force professional players to play at least 30 games or 20 games in the PTRs and see their feedback, and see the results and then update there. Because if we have a balance patch, I'm kind of worried this might be the last balance patch, and I think a lot of players don't understand that. Like, they just want new units added and everything. And for players who are playing 1v1, I'm very worried that if there's any balance patch going forward, what will be the state of the game? Would people who play 1v1 even enjoy the game if it's completely broken?
If there is no more patch, like after this one from Blizzard, for like, how long do you think before community should start patching themselves? Let's say like this patch comes out soon, like in 2 weeks, for example. Then 1 year and a half passes without no patch. 2 years pass without no patch. When do you think the community should try and start patching themselves, if ever?
I think like what you say presses a big concern. So in the software engineering cycle, you will get fired as a software engineer if you don't show results. And results are every quarterly base or a half an annual, semi-annual base. So realistically, these patch notes will come out by the end of this Christmas time as a Christmas present for the performance review for software engineers, or like early January or February. If that's the case, this might be, like I said, the last patches, and now the question becomes like maybe the community should step in. After seeing if the balance is that bad, maybe the community needs to step in. But the worry becomes maybe the Chinese community, well, the NetEase is getting shut down, so maybe it's different. It's going to be inconsistent. There's going to be a lot of people, whoever's in charge of the balance of the game in W2 Champion, who are the admins, have complete control of the patches, and we don't know the after effects. And people are very biased many times, and whoever is balancing towards, or maybe the masses don't understand the competitive scene properly, it'll be all over the place. And it does open like a Pandora's box. Like I said, if the balance is so bad after PTR that we have to take this step, we might have to, but I really hope that isn't the case. That scares me or worries a bit. And having seen Happy's balance notes, Remo's balance notes, Grubby's balance notes, I'm really, really unsure. Ideally, I wish Blizzard would do it, but realistically, I don't know the real answer.
LawLiet, did you understand the question?
No.
커뮤니티가 이게 블리자드가 대답이 없으면 나중에 커뮤니티 자체가 밸런스 패치를 만들어야 되냐? 그거에 대해 생각.
그것도 좋은 아이디어라고 생각하는데 물론 밸런스 패치에서 가장 중요한 건
He says that's a good idea also, but the importance of balance patches.
어떤 사람들의 패치를 할 것이냐가 중요하거든요.
What kind of people are going to patch it is the question.
Yeah, Remo and Grubby.
Perfect. Nice.
Yeah, no, I think what I suggested earlier is if there is no more patches from Blizzard, what I would like to see happen, like somebody, you know, let's say like Neo, for example, goes to the world-class players and asks them for feedback, keep it private, give it to a bunch of people who are as unbiased as possible, and then they read through the changes and they decide what is changed in the game. That's how I personally picture is the best case scenario for us to get patches. But hopefully, Blizzard will do really well with this patch. They're gonna at least patch, you know, every 6 months. I think that would be better than once a year, personally, and do it the same way as now, where they do like one PTR, they update, and then maybe they update again. I think that would be best case scenario. All right, thank you so much, guys. I give you some last words, and you can do shout outs as well. So if there's anybody you want to shout out or pass any message on to the community, you know, or Remo or Grubby or whatever, or Blizzard, now is the time. Go ahead. AccountCreate.
I just want to say to Remo and Grubby and everyone else that I mentioned, I do not hate them. I like them. I like what they do to the community. And I know it's not their fault. Like, Remo, please do not feel attacked. I know you have you're not responsible for this. It's just the state of the game as it is and how Blizzard's working. And let's try to keep our personal thoughts from our real life talk. Just understand, because I also understand that patch notes are happening once and like never. I also have to look extreme on internet forums because like I'm worried what could be the result, and that my internet personality is not me in real life. So yeah, I hope you all the best.
And any shout outs to like your stream, Jim, anything?
No. I mean, shout outs to LawLiet stream. He has a Korean stream and it's called IcePI. So guys, he's in Africa TV. You should watch him more often. He also has a YouTube page. You should follow him.
Yeah,
donate some money to him.
So there we go. You already began his shout out, LawLiet.
일단 패치가 레모와 그루비의 잘못은 아니라고 생각을 하고요.
He says from the start, he thinks for the start, he thinks Remo and Grubby are not at fault for the patch, and
자기 아이디를 걸고 그 밸런스란 얘기를 하는 건 정말 엄청난 용기가 필요한 일이고.
He says using your ID to talk about balance patches, like ideas, is a very brave thing.
다만 문제는 블리자드가 그 양쪽에서 톡톡 빼가지고 만들었다는 게 문제라고 생각을 하거든요.
The problem is that Blizzard just copy pasted ideas from it. That's the problem.
한 명이 생각한 거는 이제 4개의 종족전을 다 맞추는 아이디어가 있을 텐데 그거를 몇 개씩만 가져가니까.
So one person's idea of each race of the 4 races, you know, exists, but just taking each idea on the spot for that for the races might be a problem.
그래도 뭔가 점점 나아지고 있는 방향은 맞기 때문에 저는 이런 패치를 좋아하고요. 더 나은 패치가 됐으면 좋겠습니다.
He says regardless, he thinks this kind of approach is the right approach, a better approach for the game. So he is in agreement with it. At least for the game itself.
마지막으로, finally, last one. I need some ToD patch note.
You know, I don't want to speak about balance so much anymore. You know, like if I play a game on my stream that I complain, but it scares me yeah, I know, but it scares me that if I make some balance proposal, which is ridiculous, then I actually see it added in the balance, and then I will be like, oh my god, what have I done? You know, like this is my fault or something. So I'd rather not talk about balance as much, but obviously I will still complain a lot about everything because human fucking sucks. But yeah, that's about it.
We can say together Humba and goodbye.
No, obviously Humba. Yeah, it's in balance because it's too bad. Human. That's how it's Humba.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, guys. I will put the link to your stream under the video, which I will post on YouTube, LawLiet. How often do you stream these days? How often do you stream?
LawLiet 스트림에 한 얼마 정도 하냐고. 많이 하냐, 언제 그런 거.
잘 안 합니다, 별로.
He says he doesn't stream much. He says from time to time.
Okay, well, hopefully that will change. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me for this, and I wish you a good night, LawLiet, and good afternoon.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.